You have probably seen this kind of action scene before. Shaky, handheld camera work and contrasting extremes of focal lengths, all edited together with rapid cuts. This technique of editing fits into a wider stylistic trend in modern cinema, one which David Bordwell has coined as intensified continuity. Bordwell's theory illustrates how the average shot length in films has progressively decreased over the decades since the early days of cinema up until present day. In the key features of this intensified continuity, Bordwell highlights the significance of the use of more frequent cuts and rapid editing. This style of editing has spread throughout all genres of modern cinema, but is in particular easy to identify within action films. While it is impossible to pinpoint exactly where this specific style of intensified continuity in action films began, a style which some might refer to as having a very choppy, disorientating type of editing, there is little doubt concerning the impact and influence of this technique as utilised across the original trilogy of Bourne films. In the following video essay, I will focus my attention on two contemporary action films, Bourne Ultimatum and Taken 3, and by doing so, I highlight and argue ways in which this trending editing technique can serve to complement and enhance the visceral experience of some action films, but if not used correctly, detract from others. Director Paul Greengrass prefers his audience to experience the film rather than just observe it, and the Bourne Ultimatum is edited as such to replicate our sensory perception. Often, in our own reality, we only get the opportunity to gather quick bits of information from the world around us, of which we then need to piece together and develop into a fuller picture that makes sense. In the following example, we can see this approach to editing as Jason Bourne tracks down a target. The average shot length here is short, with fast cutting used throughout. We are only ever given quick glimpses of the world and objects relevant to the scene, often from Jason's perspective, and we must then attempt to piece together the different clues presented to us in the same way his character needs to do, in a rushed, frantic manner. We can also note how throughout the film, only the most necessary of footage is kept, and the fast cutting serves to quicken the pace of scenes, enhancing our sense of Jason Bourne's movement through his environments as being quick and efficient. Moving on from Bourne, now let's look at the editing within Taken 3. Critically, this film was received poorly, with much of the criticisms touching upon its approach to editing. One specific scene in the film also attracted a lot of negative reception due to the almost comically excessive number of cuts used to show Liam Neeson's character, Brian Mills' scale offence. Whereas in Bourne, scenes often only showed us quick glimpses of information, showing us the world from Jason Bourne's perspective, and stripping scenes down to only the most necessary of footage, we can instead see in this example repeated shots of the same action over and over again, only just from different angles. This scene, along with many others in the film, are attempting to convince us of Brian Mills' agility and his ability to evade and outsmart the authorities. However, the excessive cuts, often to angles that obscure a clear view of the actor, very likely a stunt double, is using this editing technique to hide rather than show us something. This rapid cutting, intensified continuity style of editing works in the Bourne Ultimatum as it effectively enhances the intensity and pace of scenes, while always reinforcing ideas connected to and grounded within the narrative of the film. At times, cuts may appear random or disorientating, but are very much intentionally chosen and always have a purpose, conveying important clues or information, and puts the viewer inside the mind and situation Jason Bourne finds himself in. Other films have tried to replicate the editing style of the Bourne films, but don't seem to fully understand or embrace the details required to make it work effectively. Taken 3 attempts, but ultimately fails to use this same editing technique for a number of reasons. It takes the rapid editing style of Bourne a step too far, to the point of being over the top and unnecessary, and uses cuts to hide and obscure details, which ultimately damages the flow, believability, and overall impact of scenes. In conclusion, this trend of rapid editing in action movies can definitely work well, but it relies on justified and well executed creative planning that ties the editing to a film's world, narrative, and characters.